points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show starts now.
Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this evening on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good evening, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show. With Dave Manouk, with Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel, here to discuss a rarity in these parts, a Winnipeg Jets victory, a tidy 2-0 victory over the Minnesota Wild. The hometown team gets the second half, their post-All-Star game portion of their schedule off on the right foot with an all-important 2-0 victory against the Wild. Gentlemen, good to see you on this Tuesday evening. I hope you're both doing well.
Yeah, good to see you, boys. First off, before we get into the goals, there weren't a ton of goals, but we're going to obviously break them down, break the whole game down. Just great to see fans back in the building. Like, we knew that it was going to be just a matter of time, right, guys? And hopefully it's not too long from now before it's a full building. But yeah, just wanted to get that in there. It's great to see 7,500 fans back at Canada Life Center, and you mentioned it, Drew. I mean, the Jets don't have too many wins as of late, so pretty hard-fought victory. You heard Dennis and Kevin on the broadcast talk about them a lot. It was a pretty hard-earned victory. So, yeah, not a ton of goals, but anytime you have two guys fighting twice in one game, like you did with Lowry and Marcus Foligno, you know that there was some bad blood, and it was probably a pretty decent game. So even though it was only 2-0, it wasn't one of those boring 2-0 games. That's for sure, Dave.
No doubt about it, Ezzy. Sorry, I'm working multiple angles. Moose and Stars heading to OT. Texas scored with 0.1 second to go in the game.
Wow.
So I'm trying to watch that OT while doing the post-game show as well. So
hey, Dave will keep us updated on what's happening in Texas as the Moose and the Stars are headed off to overtime. But you're absolutely right, Ezzy. These are two teams. This game should have had an edge, and it did. These are two teams that certainly don't like each other, two teams that certainly know each other very well. And this Winnipeg Jets team, is desperate. We've discussed that. Oh, Dave got.
Can I interject?
Yes, you can. We have an update from Texas. Hang on.
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Manouk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Too early. All right.
If you're giving us an update on what happened in Texas, give us the update.
The captain, Jimmy Olney, finishes it off in overtime, and the Moose kick off the four-game road trip with an undermanned Moose team, I should say, kick off the four-game road trip with a 3-2 overtime win over the Texas Stars. Impressive game. We'll talk about more later in the show.
Jimmy likes to score overtime goals.
Jimmy does.
Jimmy's gonna get you, Ezra. Jimmy's gonna get you. In any event, this as I was saying, two teams that know each other well, two teams that don't like each other, two teams, a Winnipeg Jets team that is desperate, and a Minnesota Wild team that's happy to try and ruin the Winnipeg Jets plans. And so the Jets came out tonight in one of their best first periods in a long while, I would say. They were fast. They were, throughout the whole game. It's not even that it was just the first period. The Jets, I thought, played well tonight and played as well as we've seen against a really upper echelon opponent. And I think it really sort of backs up what I said. I think it was on Saturday's Illegal Curve Hockey Show, or maybe even last week at some point, the Jets seem to be playing to their level of their opponent, because the last two really quality teams they played, the St. Louis Blues, they defeated, and the Minnesota Wild tonight, they defeated. Well, I guess for the fortunate side for the Jets is that their schedule has a lot of difficult games on it coming up, so you hope they continue with that pattern.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Drew. And, you had to start it off with a win. You had to start off, what I'm saying is the post-All-Star schedule with the win, right? Because it would have just been so, disheartening if you didn't start it off with at least a point. And, this was a game, I agree with the analysis of the first period. Like, obviously, Scheifele gets the opening goal, and it's, he doesn't get all of it, a really nice pass on the power play. And, you really like I think the way that line responded, and Andrew Kopp up the middle with Pierre-Luc Dubois out of the lineup. I mean, having Dubois and Pionk out of the lineup, we know is obviously significant when you've already got Nikolai Ehlers out of the lineup, and we'll maybe touch on that a little bit later with Ehlers looking like he's at least a couple of weeks away, maybe as much as 3 or 4 weeks away. But yeah, it was a really good start. And yeah, I thought the second period was not the best for the Jets. I mean, you saw the Wild come back. They had the late power play. Kirill Kaprizov, if you remember, had a really good chance. Hellebuck, I think it was a right pad save that he made, a save that I thought looked probably didn't look as difficult as it was, but a really nice save. But this was a game in which
an instinct save that he just sort of a goalie knowing that the puck's coming sort of low to your pad, and he just kicks out the leg and made a nice save.
And I thought, Drew, that, this was one of those games where Hellebuck made it look effortless, right? And, we've seen that so many times over the years where he gets a shutout and it seems like he doesn't even break a sweat, right? So, I mean, Hellebuck obviously, didn't face like 50 shots or anything like that, like he did in San Jose, last season, but it was just a really well-earned shutout. So he deserves a lot of marks. And I thought Paul Stastny was really solid today. Obviously, he gets the empty netter taken away from him, but I thought he was really good, playing up with Scheifele and Wheeler. And I thought Kopp, Dubois, and Perfetti were good. And then you can go up and down the lineup. Like, I really liked the way Christian Reichel and Evgeny Svechnikov looked flanking Adam Lowry, right? Like, obviously Lowry, got into a couple fights and he was throwing his weight around. But remember that play that Reichel made between the legs to Svechnikov? Like, you could tell guys that, that line has something going, and especially not knowing, exactly when Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to come back. It looks like Pionk, there's a better chance he comes back because he's asymptomatic now.
No, they're talking about Dubois and Pionk are both, I would say at this point, probable or questionable plus, let's say, if not probable, for Friday's game in Dallas, because Dubois is still in the U.S., so he doesn't have the border issue to deal with. And Pionk, to your point, is apparently asymptomatic, so it's a matter of seeing if he can test out of protocol before Friday and can get on the plane with the team.
Yeah, so I thought, for a team that has struggled to really have, even 3 scoring lines going, let alone 4 scoring lines going. Remember Dominic Toninato, he drew a penalty, for the Jets. So I liked Harkins had some jump to his game. Like, I just thought overall, like, this was a really good, first game back after the All-Star break, when we know, guys, that, when sometimes when teams are off for, 6 or 7 days, the first game can be a little bit slow and a little bit discombobulated. So overall, just a really solid, I just loved, Lowry and Foligno. I was talking about it with Dave here. I don't know how Foligno didn't get a match penalty there, but I'm sure that the NHL Department of Player Safety is going to look at that, because that Kevin Sawyer said that on the broadcast. Like, there's no place for that. That was a clean fight. Lowry probably won the fight, and just Foligno was frustrated, and that's just stupid.
Well, I always enjoy. You can tell when when an ex-player is doing analysis and they get really upset. You can hear it in their voice. They know. I mean, the code of conduct, the code of on-ice respect, and the ex-players when they're doing games, you can really sort of hear it in their voice. And when they get heated, when they watch something, I remember there was a game. Oh, this must have been years ago. Because Shane Knighty was still on doing the color analysis, and I can't remember who the player was. I think it was a game in St. Louis, and they had one of their guys, running around like a bit of a rat. The guy had a reputation for being a rat, and he did something, and you could almost feel like Shane was getting ready to jump over the boards and get after it because it was such a dirty play. I'd have to really, think way back to try and figure out exactly who it was, but it was a guy who had a reputation for dirty play, and you could hear it tonight. Kevin Sawyer, when he saw the knee, he was sort of outraged. Now, Kevin obviously wears, Jets colored glasses when he does his analysis, but I think that one he was legitimately upset, witnessing that happen on the ice with really only a minor penalty called, which makes you wonder what the officials were doing, but that would be true for a lot of the game, I would say, Dave.
Yeah, just reading some of the post-game comments, Darren Bombing asked Marcus Foligno about the knee to Adam Lowry's head. He said he'll share more of the comments later, but said there was no intent. He heard them complaining of a leg in there. For me, it was just heat of the battle and just a little ticked off. Seemed a little bit more than that, but anyways, I mean, I suspect. Look, you can never know what player safety is going to call a penalty or what they're going to say is something that they need to have a conversation about. But to me, that seems pretty clear cut. That I mean, I get that there's the heat and they're pissed, and there's the friendly Manitoba versus Minnesota nice rivalry, and you've got the playoffs, and even though these teams didn't face each other last year, there is a good rivalry between these two teams because of the playoff battles. But I just think like it's something that you just don't do. Sitting on a guy, like just putting a knee to the guy's head, completely unnecessary, especially at the end of it. And you're there, and you put him down on the ground anyways, right?
Yeah,
you
look,
got him down, so I don't know.
It's totally unnecessary, but I love it. I love that there's going to be even more of an edge.
Well, remember these two teams play on the 16th,
in a week,
right?
Yeah, they play in a week. A week from tomorrow, they play again. I like that there's going to be even more of an edge. I like that the hate continues to build up. I mean, look, is it a dirty? Yeah, it's hockey. You're right. Is it a dirty play? Absolutely. Will the Department of Player Safety punish him? Well, maybe. Who knows with the Department of Player Safety? The point is, the players.
I'd be surprised if they don't, Drew. I mean, that's you gotta call. You gotta think at least there has to be something for that.
You would think so, but you definitely know that Adam Lowry. I mean, not that he needs to take a number because him and Marcus Foligno have done more than their share of battles over the years. But it's just going to be another layer. Look, how often do two guys fight against one another twice in the same game? It doesn't happen. You just don't see it happen.
The sons of former NHLers, right? I don't know if you guys were thinking of that as well, but you're right, Drew. You rarely see one fight in a game anymore, right? We know fighting is down certainly from what it was like 10 years ago. I thought that was just kind of a sign of frustration from the entire team, right? And don't think for a second, guys, that the Jets don't remember that 7-1 loss. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, they remember that, and that was part of this game. Like, this was a laser-focused team. And I thought that right from puck drop, and we talked about, the second period, I mean, it was a little bit dominated by Minnesota at times. That's fine because the third period, I thought the Jets were the better team. And
Wild couldn't get any, what was it, 9-2, the shots on goal at the halfway mark of the third period? Something like that. It was
7-1, 9 minutes, or 8-1 or 7-1, 9 minutes into the third.
There you go. So, I mean, this is a Wild team.
I mean, how many times have we seen that in a game where the Jets are down, they're trying to fight back, and they're not showing the control, and yet that's exactly what they did in this game. So, I mean, it's something that we've often talked about for this Jets team that they need to do. Well, that's exactly what they were able to do in a game that they absolutely needed the 2 points.
Yeah, they needed the 2 points. And, you talk about Adam Lowry, and this is when Adam Lowry's at his best. Because as we've talked about, it's clear that expecting any sort of offensive contribution from Adam Lowry is just not realistic. When he gets it, it's a bonus, but it's like when Sean Cronin used to score. Not something you expect. But this is Adam Lowry, physical and intimidating and throwing his body around, that the Jets need to see. If he's not going to score, and obviously the Jets would prefer if he scores a little bit more, they need him to be noticeable doing other things, being an agitator. His line was really good tonight, or not, in terms of shutting down some of the Wild best players, because this is a Minnesota Wild team that is, I think, 4th in the NHL in goals for, something like that. This is a high-powered offense that the Jets were able to shut out tonight. The first time all year that the Wild have been shut out.
I think the Wild came in at plus 41, and the Jets came in at -8 for goal differential.
Well, I mean, there you go. So,
and guys, you had, Kirill Kaprizov on the point streak, Kevin Fiala on the point streak. Like, I really like this Minnesota team. That's why I think this victory is even more impressive for the Jets. And obviously, the Jets are going to have to follow this up with victories in Dallas and Nashville, right? Like, you can't just, play win one, lose one hockey. We know that. We talked about, the Jets are essentially going to have to win, somewhere around 70% of their games to qualify and get into the playoffs with around 95 points. We think around there, 94, 95 points, right? So you're right, Drew. I mean, this team has a lot of offensive weapons, and obviously, a guy like Matt Dumba on the back end was missed. So, you saw Jordy Ben in there, Dmitry Kulikov, a couple of ex-Jets, but this Wild team is, I don't think they're necessarily, up there with the Colorado Avalanche as Stanley Cup contenders, but they're not that far off.
Well, they certainly have the offense. So the Jets, anytime, look, this is not a Jets team. This is a Jets team that has been struggling to do anything really well on a regular basis. I thought tonight they're, and we've talked about it all season, their attention to detail, I thought, was pretty good tonight. Their back pressure I thought was some of the best back pressure they've had in games of recent memory. There were a lot of times where it looked like the Wild might be coming over the Jets' blue line with what could potentially be a dangerous opportunity.
Remember Drew and Paul sorry, I was to cut you off. Paul Stastny, I believe it was Kevin Fiala, if you guys remember. I want to say that was the second period. It might have been the first period, I forget. Maybe somebody in the chat will remember, but Paul Stastny, I believe, stripped Fiala right around center, and then it led to that scoring chance for Scheifele, if you remember the breakaway.
Right.
So that's a perfect example.
Second period, that was in
that was the second. I thought it was. Yeah, thank you, Drew. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, this was a game in which these guys were dialed in, and obviously they've had a lot of time to think about this first game back against the Wild. So they were focused, they were ready, and these guys worked. Like this was a workman-like effort. Obviously, the Scheifele goal, showed a little bit of skill there, though even we talked about he kind of fanned on it a little bit. Kakinen just couldn't get over in time. But, and I really liked the way Perfetti and Heinola looked out there on the power play. Johnny Kovacevic just checked. He actually had the best 5-on-5 Corsi for the Jets. So, Chisholm and Kovacevic obviously didn't play a ton. But in a game like this, that's almost a good thing, right, guys, if they're not noticeable. So I thought overall, this was just one of those team efforts where you really liked what you see, and it's something that you can build off. That's the most important thing right now with the tough Nashville Dallas back-to-back. It's something you can build off. It was a game that you had to have. The big boys stepped up, the Scheifeles, the Wheelers, the Stastnys, the Hellebucks, they stepped up and they deserved the 2 points.
Yeah, the Jets, they still can't score. I mean, you can't overlook the fact that this team still can't score 5-on-5 because, they went, you saw it. They didn't get a goal 5-on-5 here. They had the goal 5-on-6 into the empty net, and they had the power play goal. Mm-hmm. And the high danger chances were, it was a sort of a low event game, a tight checking game both ways, especially after that, I'd say that first 10 minutes of the first period. Then it really got to be more of a tight checking game. But those might be the way the games, those might be the way the Jets have to win games, because whatever their offensive struggles are, they don't seem to be, changing or improving overnight. Now, of course, you're without Pierre-Luc Dubois. You're without Nikolai Ehlers. When Dubois, if he comes back into the lineup on Friday, it's certainly a boost to your offense, of course, and your entire team. But maybe this is the MO that the Jets have to mirror to be successful, because the offense just isn't there for this team. So, it's a bit of a cliche when you say it all starts in your own zone. It all starts with defense. Even the most high-powered team would say that. But for this Jets team to be successful, it might really start in their own zone, Dave.
Well, I mean, I think there's no doubt about it. And I think one of the things, and one of the things we learned today was that Nikolai Ehlers is not going to be back anytime soon. Dave Lowry seemed to pour cold water on that. We have that full intel up on illegalcurve.com after the media availability this morning. So he talked about Nikolai Ehlers, and like I said, he used a ways away. Whenever a coach says a ways away, it's not a good thing. So I mean, I think that you're gonna not have that offense, and that's one thing it's unexpected from the Jets to not be able to score, but right now that's their reality. So what do you need? You need to play responsible defensively. Well, they did that for the most part. The Wild had some chances, especially in that first period, but for the most part, especially in that third, where the Jets, I mean, Dennis said it on the broadcast. I think he said they have 1 third period goal in the last 6 games. So knowing that reality, the Jets were going to be in tough, but they managed to do what they need to do, which is, play offensively, play smart defensively, and take it to Minnesota and not allow them to really set up shop or take possession of the puck. So, yeah, I mean, you can't minimize what missing Pierre-Luc Dubois does to this lineup. I mean, he has 18 goals on the season, and he's been, one of your best center or one of your best forwards, all season long. So losing him is a huge loss for this Jets team, but that's just the reality of every team right now, is that you have to deal with guys coming in and out of the lineup. So what do? You play a collectively better game. And one of the things that Dave Lowry talked about, and I don't disagree with him, is you can't lament what happened in the first half. You can't deal with it. If you fall short because you didn't have a good first 41 games of the season, well, then you're going to kick yourself in the ass when playoffs come and you're golfing. But all you can do is focus on what's in front of you. Right now, you focus on the Minnesota Wild. You put forth a 60-minute effort, which is what we've talked about this Jets team needing to do, and that's what they did. And now you have to turn the attention. You have to put this one in the back burner. Forget about it, because as nice as it is to collect 2 points, you can't rest on your laurels. As Ezzy said earlier, I mean, you can't afford to go into to Dallas and lose in Dallas. You have to beat Dallas. You have to beat Nashville. You have to keep rolling, because that's the position you put yourself in. So it's not to say the Jets can't get themselves out of it, but it's an uphill climb.
It absolutely is. And I mean, I guess and we've talked about it, and the silver lining in that uphill climb is that tonight and then the next 4 games are all against Central Division opponents. So you got tonight, you took care of business against Minnesota. You've now improved to 19-7-7 on the season. I mean, you're still a Walmart away from the Wild in the standings. You're still 14 points behind Minnesota in the standings.
A Walmart?
A Walmart, like the size of a Walmart away from
100,000 square feet.
Sure, I'm saying that there's a large gap between the Jets and the
Minnesota
Wild.
Football free agency today, Drew? I thought you'd go with like a football reference, like a football field away.
Yeah, fair enough. Sorry,
I
guess
Walmart.
You're
like a TCF Bank Stadium away type of thing, Drew. Being a Vikings fan.
Yeah, but it was CFL free agency day, so you could say you're an IG field away from the Minnesota Wild in the standings if you want. In any event, you
sad to see Andrew Harris go to the Argos, by the way.
Yeah, you could sort of tell that the Bombers made Brady Oliveira more of a priority because he's got less tread on his tires, or he's got more tread on his tires. Right? Isn't that how it works? I think more tread is on the tires.
Tread is good.
Yeah, tread is good.
You want
it's
tread.
like Drew. It's like being bald.
That's right.
Just don't tread on Dave.
You have less tread on your hair.
I do have, and whatever I had before today, I shaved it off.
By the way, how many people are going to guess tread tomorrow on Wordle?
Probably a lot now that you mentioned that, Ezzy. In any event, what I was saying is that entering tonight's game, the Jets, if they'd lost tonight, they were going to be 18 points behind the Minnesota Wild. Now they're still 14 points, which is still a significant difference. But you're only 3 points behind the Dallas Stars when you face them. Depending on what happens between now and Friday, of course. But that when you face them on Friday, that's what you got to do. You got to pick off one team at a time that's ahead of you. So you're feeling good about yourself. Now it's the time to see if they can demonstrate that consistency, the consistency that Paul Stastny was talking about and has mentioned, and the team has mentioned the fact that they just can't be, one game on, one game off, or 1 game on, 5 games off, whatever it might be. They have to build on it and keep the momentum going. And then all of a sudden, you get through this week, and if you're feeling good about yourself, well, then you get through next week. Because next week, you got, who do you have? You got Chicago and Seattle, as well as Minnesota. And then, of course, you got Edmonton and Calgary sort of towards the end of next week and the beginning of the week after. Getting way ahead of ourselves, but you need to be able to begin to build something. And you build something by seeing success. So if this is the MO for the Jets to be successful, playing a defensive shutdown style that's opportunistic or capitalizes on the power play, you'd like to see a little bit more of 5-on-5 offense, of course, but at least something to build upon.
Exactly. And this was more, you mentioned the St. Louis game, and this looked more for the Jets. The style that they played, I'm talking about, was much more, reminiscent of the St. Louis game as opposed to, the Vancouver game or the Philadelphia loss, right? Obviously, they're both wins, but you're right, Drew. I mean, the Jets right now, even though we talked about it, I mean, we like, the lines. And one other thing I just checked too, I knew that the Jets, I knew specifically Lowry was good in the faceoff circle, but every single Jets center was over 70%. Like you had Scheifele at, what was he at? Exactly 70%. You had Stastny at 71, Lowry 78. I mentioned Kopp 72%. Like Andrew Kopp hasn't played a lot of center over the last several years. Like we talked about it in college, he was a center and he's played a little bit of center at the NHL level. So, I mean, when you talk about the struggles of Blake Wheeler or even Connor Hellebuck, like we talked a lot about Hellebuck's struggles on the Saturday show, right? Like these guys stepped up in a big way. You mentioned Paul Stastny, Drew. He doesn't get any points tonight. We mentioned, how good he was defensively. It seems like every time the Jets really need a win, like when they're really desperate for a win, I thought Stastny was one of the Jets' best players. And I think even though, he doesn't, like I said, he doesn't, score any goals or anything like that, really good in the faceoff circle, excellent defensively. He just creates time and space for his line mates. Like he does things that you have to really kind of almost watch him specifically, almost as if you're scouting him to really see those little things that he's doing, just tying up defenseman sticks, and just making those small little passes. But I was really impressed, with the Jets. And quite frankly, going into this game, I wasn't sure what to expect with the week off and, no Pierre-Luc Dubois, as you mentioned earlier, Drew, no Neil Pionk. I mean, that's your best center and your second best, or at the very least a top 4 defenseman, right? So you're right. I mean, you got to keep this going, but if you didn't get a win tonight, you really had nothing to build upon. So even though the loss against Philadelphia was devastating and that was a must-win game, I would say that this was even more of a must-win game, considering, as you mentioned, I mean, this is the quote-unquote 4-point game, and so now you're closer to Dallas. And I don't think Dallas is that good. I think Dallas is, has got some good players. Joe Pavelski's having an excellent season at 37 years old. And, I think they've been a nice story. But, I mean, the Jets are still in this. They're not at the point yet. And Dave mentioned earlier, I mean, you can't start thinking about how many points you're behind, whether it's Minnesota or Colorado, which I think it's something like 23 points at this point. So, I mean, you just have to focus, as you mentioned, Drew, on each game. And this next stretch coming up is not going to be easy. Dallas, Nashville, that's the back-to-back that they were supposed to play at the end of December, I believe, or early January. So that's not going to be easy. No back-to-backs are. And then you've got another back-to-back next week. So this is absolutely crucial, but an excellent start to the post-All-Star break schedule.
Yeah, no question. And should mention that the Predators and the Stars actually play each other tomorrow night in Dallas. So obviously the Jets, in terms of your standings watching, the Jets don't want that to be a 3-point game. They want somebody to probably get a clean win, and they probably want that somebody to be the Predators, I would suggest, so that they can try and get even closer to the Stars when they play each other on Friday, Dave. There was a lot to like about the Jets game tonight. Obviously, I mean, this team isn't what I would describe as fixed, because there's still the offense still isn't there.
One game does not make a season.
One game does not make a season, and it's certainly the case, Dave. But there was a lot. You just like the effort, and you like the workman-like style. And I'll be honest, when Mike McIntyre, I saw him tweeting yesterday from practice, late in the afternoon, the first practice after the All-Star break, and he talked about, first of all, he mentioned the absences of the guys who weren't on the ice, and then he talked about how quiet the practice was. And that to me was a little bit of gave me a warning sign. I thought a quiet practice after the team hasn't really been around each other for almost a week. After the All-Star break, you would have thought it would have been a more, not necessarily jovial, but more of a more energy to the practice. Maybe the lack of energy was because they were focused on the attention to detail and a workmanlike effort. But to me, I was a little surprised that they came out with as much energy as they did after what sounded like a bit of a quieter practice.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Lowry talked about that, and he actually said he made it sound like everything in the room was a lively atmosphere. So perhaps they saved it they wanted to show that they were they put their work boots on. They were just prepared to do some work and not yucking it up, and then were able to relax inside the privacy of the locker room, which we of course don't have access to anymore now, but would have in yesteryear. But you know what? I mean, I think what it comes down to is I think we saw guys who just work their butts off. Guys like Christian Reichel, Evgeny Svechnikov. Like, I liked his game too. I mean, he was pissed at that penalty he took. He did not agree with it in the first period. He let the refs hear it, or it was the second period. But regardless, he was not happy with it. But I liked his effort. I liked his game.
The second period.
Yeah, in the second period.
Yeah.
But I liked
after the refs let so many other questionable calls go. It's not that it wasn't a penalty. I mean, I guess, but when you're letting so much else go, and that's the one you decide to call.
Yeah, and so but I liked what he brought. I liked Cole Perfetti's game. I thought he was, really good. I thought, you can see, like I've talked about a while now, you see him getting more and more comfortable in the environment, and as a result, he's not just comfortable, he's getting confident. And as he gets more confidence, well, what's he going to do? He's going to do what he does best, which is, facilitate. And we saw it with that pass to Paul Stastny, who wasn't quite ready for it, and kind of was running out of a little bit of real estate there and just couldn't put it into the empty net. But a beautiful pass across. But
to your point about Perfetti, I thought the best play from Perfetti, because there were a number of times when he was noticeable in tonight's game, was when he back checked, forced the turnover at the Jets blue line, and then turned it up the ice with Kyle Connor. on if I recall correctly, a bit of an odd man rush, and he fed Connor, and it didn't turn into anything significant. But anytime Kyle Connor is in the slot and can get away a shot, it's a dangerous opportunity, and it all starts with Perfetti, a young guy, doing the right thing on the back check, forcing the turnover, and then turning it back up the ice.
I think what it comes down to, though, and I think we've talked about this before, is I think what we saw tonight was a team effort and a team win. And you saw it collectively, right? Connor Hellebuck was quiet. He did the things he needed to do to flash the leather on that one save on Kaprizov and made a couple of other nice quality saves. Kakinen made some nice saves for them as well in the Wild net, where the Jets could have scored a couple of goals, early in that first period, where they could have really blown it open. And so he kept his team in it. So I thought both goaltenders were good. But yeah, I mean, right up and down the lineup, I thought Brendan Dillon had a strong game, not just in literal fashion with the fighting, but I thought he was good. I thought Nate Schmidt had a nice game.
Dylan DeMello too, Dave. We talked about it on Saturday. It made so much sense to have DeMello and Morrissey together, because obviously they've played together, quite a bit over the last couple of years. And I checked, just under 23 minutes, played a little bit of PK, but the Jets only had the one penalty, right? Yeah. So I thought he was just quietly, again, really good. I agree with you. Dylan had a strong game. Schmitty gets the empty netter against Minnesota, which is always pretty funny, right? So, I mean, there weren't a lot of players that you would say, underperformed or didn't have a good game. And oftentimes guys in a win, it's easy, Drew likes to bring out the rose-colored glasses and, everybody was great. But really, I mean, like Blake Wheeler on the first goal, the Scheifele goal, there were only 2 goals. Like, he gets aggressive on the forecheck and check the stat line. Like, he had 5 hits tonight. Like, again, Wheeler is a guy, Drew makes a good point. I mean, if there's, the biggest issue with the Jets for sure right now is the 5-on-5 offense. The power play is fine. Special teams are fine. Like the penalty kill we've talked about. Penalty kill has been, very strong over the last kind of 10 to 12 games after being just awful earlier in the season, right? But Wheeler's in there. Like, he's working. He's busting his ass. So if he's not going to be scoring, whether it's even strength or on the power play, like, he's getting in on the forecheck. He's digging pucks up for, whether it's Scheifele or Stastny. So I really liked his effort. And, for a guy that was called out, let's be honest, Paul Stastny called Scheifele and Wheeler out. I thought it was a good response from those guys.
Yeah, it certainly was, especially on the night when you don't have Pierre-Luc Dubois and your lines are all juggled a little bit, and it's a must-win game, as most of the Jets games are from here probably till the end of the regular season. The Jets, they get the job done. They get the clean 2 points. They hold on, especially when it was a 1-0 lead. And not only did they hold on, but they really didn't give the Minnesota Wild any breathing room for the majority of tonight's game, especially in that third period when the Wild should have been or were trying to push for the equalizer.
They were like killer bees tonight, Drew.
There you go. Let's take our break. When we come back, more on tonight's game. We'll talk Ville Heinola. We'll talk about some goings-on around the league. Ezzy will award a Tough Duck hardest-hitting comment. Dave will probably have a Manuk Moose Minute. Lots to come. Stay with us. You're watching the Illegal Curve post-game show. The Jets victorious by a 2-0 margin over the Minnesota Wild.
Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the biggest acts and all the up-and-comers. They've all made their mark at Rumors Comedy Club, North America's longest-running independent comedy club. Rumors has kept Winnipeg laughing for over 25 years. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends or book your office or birthday party, even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
He winds up. Oh, looks like Ezzy took that one right in the choppers.
A blistering fast puck hurts like HE double hockey sticks. That's why I let the pros at Linden Market Dental Center turn my yow into
wow.
Get your brilliant smile back with state-of-the-art restorative and cosmetic dentistry from real pros.
And remember, always wear a mouth guard.
Now that's solid on ice advice. Learn more at lindenmarketdentalcenter.com. Creating smiles for life.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Hey boys, finding parking on game day shouldn't take longer than the Minute Minute.
It shouldn't take longer than 1 minute?
Yeah, less than a minute? I spend at least 20 driving around to find street parking, or if I'm in a rush to the game, I'll shovel out 20 at a parkade.
You're both doing it wrong. There's this app called Grid Park. It lets you find and pre-book your parking spot on game days, and you can reserve your spot up to 1 month in advance. And guess how much you'll pay?
Tell me, Dave. You know I love a deal.
Ezzy, $5.
Come on, $5?
Yeah, and it's just 2 blocks from the arena.
The Grid Park app?
Yep, spelled Gryd Park. And you know what else?
There's more?
Our listeners get their first park free with the code FIRSTPARK.
Wow, so they just download the Grid Park app and pre-book their next game day spot for free?
Yeah, you got it, Ez. Promo code FIRSTPARK. Only on the Grid Park app.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
Whether it's watching the game with friends, pizza night with the family, or date night for two, this holiday season, give the gift of special occasions. Get a free $10 promo card when you buy a $50 gift card from Boston Pizza. Because nobody regifts pizza.
For 3 generations and over 80 years, Tough Duck has been making apparel that works and plays as hard as the people who wear it. From jackets to work boots and everything in between, Tough Duck's clothing can handle the harshest environments, even the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Work to live, live to play. Visit toughduck.com.
Hello. What's up, boys?
A little bit of a technical glitch there. I think the whole system almost shut down for a second. Welcome back. You never know when technology is going to rear its ugly head.
Were you playing for a musical interlude there?
I was trying to play some background music because we have a new background music feature on our using our system, but I don't know what happened. I think it made the whole thing go. I'm
gonna quote a classic Drew Mandel. Maybe you should have tried it before the show.
Yeah, maybe it's a fair point, Dave. I'll have something to tweet. I have something to work on now that I've got the Minute Moose Minute banner the way we need it. I'll work on something else to tweet it.
What did you have queued up there, Drew? A little Doja Cat or?
Yeah, no, nothing of. There's some free to play music in our streaming service right now that I was going to try and check out, but I'll do that on my own time, not in the middle.
We'll have to listen to Little Yachty next time.
There you go. I don't even know what that means, Ezzy, but I'll defer to you on that one entirely.
There's a rapper named Little Yachty, like Yachty. I just love that name.
Yeah, but why would you want a little yachty? Wouldn't you want a big yachty? I guess any yachty is better than no yachty at all when you really.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You don't want to. Yeah, are there any?
Are you going to yada
maybe that's part of the name.
I don't know. I don't understand it. It's Dave M. This is as he's the rap aficionado among this group. It's not you or I in this case.
Not true.
In any event, we're back talking about the Winnipeg Jets, their victory tonight over the Minnesota Wild. We'll get into more of the game. Ville Heinola, guys, I thought played a very good game for the Winnipeg Jets. Probably should have scored on that power play in the first period. He looked up to the sky when all of a sudden he thought the puck went in and it was going in, and then all of a sudden it didn't go in, and he wasn't sure how that was the case. Is he now in your regular top 6 for the Jets? when everything's equal.
Drew hitting us with the hardest hitting question right now, Drew.
Well, I mean, you're looking at the left side of that defense.
I would say yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously, like, once everybody's healthy, you might have a little bit of competition there, but yeah, I would say right now Heinola is part of your top six, even with Logan Stanley back in the picture. I would say so. I mean, put it this way, guys: why is Logan Stanley just locked in there without any discussion, right? Like, I think Dave Lowry and the coaching staff, they're probably going to have maybe a more difficult decision than they would have obviously before Heinola played NHL games, right? So there's other things that you have to factor in. But yeah, I mean, based on skill alone, he's for sure in the top six, I would say, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any question. I don't think Logan Stanley's been having his best year by any stretch of the imagination. And Heinola just looks like a guy who's getting more and more confidence at the NHL level. And I think that's the one thing he was, not getting an opportunity to do, which was, play the games. And when you don't play, we know what he was able to do at the AHL level last year, especially. And I just think he's becoming a more and more comfortable player, and he's playing to his strengths. And as I talked about in the game, I don't remember which game it was, when we had multiple young prospect defensemen, where the Jets had no choice but to play these guys. After the first game, and obviously Heinola played games last year, but after their first game, they just looked like, what, fuck it, we're going to play. And we're going to do the things that we do well. And you know what? Like I said, whether it's Johnny Kovacevic, who's, a stronger player, he's good at, his gap is usually pretty good. He's pretty good at killing the play at the line. And Ville Heinola just plays to his strength, right? He's a good skater, can make a very good first pass. And yeah, it's not going to be perfect for him, but you know what? Who cares? He's a highly skilled, highly intelligent player who sees the game very well. And I think one of the things you're going to have to give him an opportunity to do is get those reps. And I don't see why you wouldn't, right? I mean, I'm not putting him ahead of Josh Morrissey. I'm not putting him ahead of Brendan Dillon. Right. But I mean, what an opportunity for Ville Heinola to get comfortable in the NHL in that third pairing, but also, on that second power play unit. I actually thought the second power play unit played pretty well tonight. Obviously not a ton of time, especially when the first power play unit used a minute and a half in that first power play they got of the game. But I thought he played really well in his time on the power play. So I think you're just going to see a guy who, I don't think he was lacking confidence, but I just think he was lacking reps, right? He didn't have that muscle memory of playing in the NHL. Well, he's getting it slowly. And look, Rome wasn't built in a day, and Josh Morrissey was a bust. Remember Josh Morrissey, the guy who turned out to be a pretty damn good defenseman, was a bust for a long time because he wasn't in the NHL right away. So I think that like I said, you're not making him your first pairing defenseman tomorrow, but I think he is going a long way to securing his spot if he continues to progress the way he is. And yeah, there's going to be some hiccups to his game, and there's things that he needs to work on. But even he himself, one of the things he talked about in a media availability with the Moose after he got sent down during the holiday break, because they wanted obviously they were supposed to play 2 games against Texas, one of which got canceled, so they only ended up playing 1. But the idea was to get those guys who they sent down some game action playing for the Moose. And one of the things he talked about was just the things he knows he learned that he needs to work on. And it's not to say it's a revelation, but he knows the things that he needs to figure out and fix at the NHL level, and he would work on to the AHL level. But like I said, I think his growth will come with getting those opportunities and not being relied upon to be, in Josh Morrissey's spot or in Brendan Dillon's spot, because that's not really his place yet. But to be paired alongside a guy like Johnny Kovacevic, who, as I've outlined, has played. Thanks, Kenny's water bottle. But as I've outlined, he's a guy who he's very comfortable with. They've played a lot together at the AHL level. So that also, I think, will go a long way for both of them, because I think they both looked exceptionally comfortable. And like I said, some hiccups along the way for sure. But I like you liked a lot more than you didn't like in their games.
Yeah, I thought Heinola in particular was noticeable for all the right reasons. He was second on the Jets in shots on goal in tonight's game. He had 4 behind Andrew Kopp as Andrew Kopp's team leading 5. If that's the way he's going to play, then he strikes me as a guy who's going to be a regular in the Jets lineup particularly because Logan Stanley really hasn't, Logan Stanley earned the spot last year and he kept it for the entirety of the year last year. He hasn't done enough this year to keep that spot on the left side. And, and I think the Jets need an infusion. They need a boost of whatever Heinola can provide that Stanley hasn't been able to. And I know that, Stanley's there, size-wise and physicality, but I haven't really noticed him being doing either of those things as much this year. So I think it's probably time, at least for the next little while. And of course, Stanley, we don't know when he's going to be back, as he was wearing a yellow jersey at practice, non-contact jersey, but it sounds like it would be relatively soon. But I think Heinola, certainly on the strength of tonight's game, deserves another look in the lineup on Friday and Saturday against Dallas and Nashville.
Yeah, and guys, it's not, Heinola versus Stanley, apples for apples here. Like, it is in the sense that I agree with Dave. Like, Heinola is going to be, all things being equal, he's going to be a third pairing defenseman. Nobody expects him, to start playing 24, 25 minutes a night like Morrissey does, or Pionk or Schmidt, right? But in this case, yeah, you nailed it, Drew. I mean, like, Heinola, adds more of an offensive element. And you mentioned, the shots, like, he's getting more comfortable. Dave touched on that. Like, that's what you want to see. You got to remember, guys, 20 years old. We all remember what we were doing when we were 20. I definitely was not making as much money as Ville Heinola was. So, I mean, like, let's always keep
we played a clip of what you were doing when you were 20 years old on Saturday's show. And
I was 30 years old at the time, Drew. That was 30, not 2-0. And same thing goes for Cole Perfetti, guys. Let's remember how old he is, right? Like, think about how good he's going to be when he's 23, 24, 25, right? Like, you really have to keep that in mind. The NHL is not a 21-year-old league. The average age in the NHL is 26, 27 years old. So you have to, consider that. Like, yes, these guys are first-round talents, but they're still 20 years old. So, again, I'm not going to repeat myself again. Perfetti's 19 years old, but he hasn't turned 20 yet, has he? 19 or 20 years old. So, I mean.
Yeah, he turned 20 on January 1st.
There you go. So he's 20 now. So you have to always keep that in mind, that these guys are very young. They're only going to get better. Comfort is a big thing. But, yeah, we talked about it. I mean, Heinola has definitely earned a spot in the lineup, and we'll see. Pionk's going to come back, so obviously that means Kovacevic, Dave, is going to come out on the right side, right? But this is what you wanted to see. You wanted to see Heinola. I mean, all due respect to the Moose in the AHL. I mean, there's nothing more that Heinola can prove at the AHL. I'm not saying that he can't help the Moose, on a nice Calder Cup run. I mean, we talked about it. The Moose have won again. They've just been an amazing story with all the regulars out of the lineup, but. There's no doubt, guys, that and also consider Heinola's mistake that he made, right? Like we talked about, the Dubois, Heinola comes in for a pinch. Dubois doesn't give him a very good pass. So he obviously wanted to erase that memory. Like, these guys remember that type of stuff. Like, they want to go out and prove themselves and play better, especially with a new coach, right? So I think Heinola deserves a lot of credit for how he played tonight.
I like this comment from Beer League in the chat. Says Ville definitely isn't pan frying pierogies late at night. I mean, if he is, it's probably not because he's intoxicated. It might be because he's hungry after burning thousands of calories while playing in a professional hockey game, not because he was drinking heavily and then stumbled home.
I just got really hungry for pierogies. Like, I could go home and fry up some pierogies with some onions right now and probably take down about 10.
Yeah, and your wife will kick you out of the house so fast you won't even know what.
Also, I hear a knock at my door. Oh, good, Eddie's back.
Yeah, and he brought pierogies.
Little Mom's pierogies or little Ann's pierogies from the North End. Dave M knows what I'm talking about here.
There you go. Let me Tough Duck hardest hitting comment. We still got a Manuk Moose minute coming up and other things, so stay with us and smash the like button if you haven't already done so.
People. Come on, let's go.
Exactly. Tough Duck hardest hitting comment, courtesy of our friends at Tough Duck. Ezzy, who are we giving a toque to?
Yeah, we're going to give it to, I sent it to you there, Drew, in the private chat. There you go.
On
Leslie Nichnick, we're going to give it to. Jets' most complete game in a while. I agree with that. They were on the right side of the puck all night, made smart, simple plays. Perfetti looked great on the PP. Too bad that unit couldn't get a goal. I agree with everything that Leslie said there. When we talked about it, obviously, they didn't add to the one power play goal that Scheifele got in the first period. But, lots of smart, in-tight plays. Perfetti was really good. And at the end of the day, guys, I mean, this was a game in which from start to finish, the Jets were in control of, and something you can build off going into the back-to-back against Nashville and Dallas. So, Leslie, send me an email, Ezra@illegalcurve.com. Just send me your mailing address, and then Tough Duck will ship out your toque. So that is tonight's Tough Duck hardest hitting comment.
There you go. Congratulations to Leslie for that. Send Ezzy an email, Ezra@illegalcurve.com, or you can slide into his DMs at ICEzzyG.
I like, by the way, Drew, that you were always the one that says slide into my DMs. I usually just say send me an email.
Yeah.
A few people have slid into my DMs. So
I just like saying slide into.
that.
I just like that. I just like that.
Yeah.
It's not something that I think it's what the cool kids are doing. Is that
Yes.
Is that what I understand?
Yes.
I don't really know what's going on with that, but it just sort of it flows well.
The kids are also flipping. I think they're flipping water bottles and trying to make them like land on the bottom. Have you seen that before?
There were some kids.
That might be a few years ago now, but
yeah, there were some kids shooting off fireworks outside my house on Saturday night at about 2 a.m. That was that was less than appreciated. You know those youths of today. The two youths who are up to no good. That was you, Dave? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know the 40-year-olds of today. Either
just
way,
be thankful, Drew, that they're not lighting dog crap on fire in a paper bag.
That's true. Is that something you used to do there, Mr. Ginsburg, in your 20s?
No.
You don't have to answer
my
that.
20s. My 20s.
You can take the
maybe
fifth
my
about
teens,
that.
but not my. I don't think I was doing that in my 20s, Drew.
I would hope not, but you never know. You never know. I don't want to be too presumptuous or anything along those lines. Dave M, the Moose played. The Moose won. There's going to be what everybody's been here for, what everyone's been waiting for. There's going to be.
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Manuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
that opening certainly does make me chuckle still. Very all done, Drew.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Moose were in Texas. They lost some players, Christian Reichel, Johnny Kovacevic, Declan Chisholm, and Ville Heinola, who they had over the weekend when they beat Texas in the one game of supposed to be a 4-game straight series, but because of travel concerns for Texas, they only played one game this weekend, which ended up being a Moose win. The Moose flew to Texas yesterday to kick off 4 games on the road. They play today, tomorrow in Texas, and they fly to Abbotsford to play there for the first time ever. Nick Patan and the Vancouver Canucks Farm Club, so they'll play them, and they were on a bit of a roll so far. But yeah, the Moose didn't start off the game very well. They gave up the opening goal of the game, and but they managed to score very late. Ty Pelton-Weiss, the University of Wisconsin product, he scored his first goal of the season, second AHL goal. He scored.
Dave, did you just say Ty Peloton-Weiss?
That's what you call him. That's not what I call him. So
how is your Peloton going, Ezzy? Were you really getting into it?
Oh, it's great. I use it every day. It's great, Drew. I'm losing weight, looking great.
So he scored to tie the game 1-1. He scored to tie the game 1-1. Then the second period, of course, I'm watching the Jets game and the Moose game at the same time, but it was a bit of a penalty fest, and I was trying to figure it out because I'm in the arena, I'm watching the Jets game live, I'm watching the Moose game on AHL TV, and I'm trying to figure out. I keep looking, like I'd look down and periodically try and figure out what I'm watching, kind of going cross-eyed. But
Drew, when is Dave going to just spontaneously combust? Like it's just a matter of time before Dave just blows up.
Yeah, so I think there's a good chance of that, but basically what happened was I was like, how's the Moose game now behind the Jets game? Because they were ahead of the Jets game, because as they usually are, even when the games start at the same time. And it's because there were so many fights and penalties in the second period. So quite a few. I think the Moose took like 8 penalties this game. And Texas has a good power play, so it was not the best move. But it was the Moose who actually ended up having the lead. Cole Meyer, the alternate captain, he scored his 9th goal of the season, which is a career high for him. 2-1 to make it 2-1 after 40 minutes for the Moose. Nice goal on his part, kind of a spin around, and he found the back of the net. And so you thought to yourself, okay, the Moose are going to take this. They're going to kick off the road trip on a high note, off on the right skate. But with 0.1 second to go in the game, and of course I'm trying to get ready for the Jets game. But of course, 0.1 second to go, the Texas Stars score to send it to overtime. Curtis McKenzie finds the back of the net, slipped in behind the Moose, scores to tie it up. But I think they were just doing that because they wanted to set up the captain, Jimmy Olney, to score probably one of the most beautiful goals of his career, where he basically held off the defenseman and then like one-handed, I've got the puck.
He looked like Alex Ovechkin.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It was an unbelievable goal. So he gave the Moose the win, and I've got the play. I'm going to put it on our Instagram, and I've got it on my own Twitter, so you can check it out. But
at IC Dave. At
IC Dave. But it was actually like a spectacular goal. I couldn't believe he scored it. So that win gives the Moose, they're now 25-11, 2-1 on the season, 10-1 1-1. 10-2, 1-1 since the clock struck 2022. So the Moose have been flying since the new year. And again, they're doing it despite the fact that they've lost almost all their players. I mean, it's wild. They didn't have Jeff Malott, who's dealing with a lower body injury. He's supposed to join them later on in the trip in Abbotsford, but so they're doing without Jeff Malott. They've lost a bunch of their guys, but yet this team just continues to churn and shows you their character. So Nelson Nogier was returned to playing defense. He was paired with Leon Gavanke, who he's been playing in 2017, 5th rounder of the Jets. He's been very good. He had a beautiful 12-round. Wait, have I even talked about the 12-round shootout?
Yeah,
I haven't even talked about the 12-round shootout. What am I doing? That's how I should have started this. But I will quickly go to that right now. I mean, the Moose and the Stars played an incredible overtime. It was one of the best overtimes I've ever watched. Ezzy would have loved it. There wasn't one whistle. It was back and forth action. Mikkel Burden was being Mikkel Burden, setting up opportunities. He's like a fourth forward on the or maybe a fourth defenseman, I should say. But
who's the third defenseman?
I guess he'd be the third defenseman, whatever. But anyways, or the second defenseman, whatever. Semantics, Drew. The point is, and everybody knows I'm anti-semantics. So anyways, he basically sends it to overtime, solves nothing. They go to a shootout. And it wasn't as if, I mean, it was only like a 1-1 game, but somehow this game it went 12 rounds. And I confidently said to Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press before it began, I said, this has the feeling of like a 13-round shootout. So I was close, no cigar, but it went 12 rounds. Leon Gavanke scored a beauty. Mikkel Burden kind of did the old two-pack stack, forced the shot high. Moose ended up getting that win. And then, like I said, this game goes to overtime. Kudos to Texas for forcing overtime. But the Moose win, and they just keep rolling. So they'll play another game tomorrow in Cedar Park against the Stars, and then they'll go to Abbotsford, and they'll play two more on the road.
There you go. The Moose continue to win. Dave M will have the latest Moose coverage on our website.
That was a Moose Manuk minute. Let me tell you, that was like a Jackson Pollock painting. Masterpiece.
I had to get it all in. I mean, I could. You know what the problem was? I couldn't. I mean, it's funny because it's amazing how much information there is, and I kind of forgot about the shootout until I was talking, and I was like, oh, I have to talk about the shootout because I mean, how often do you ever see a 12-round? At one point I joked, I said they're gonna have to call Merrick Malik out of retirement.
I was gonna say Merrick Malik to go through the legs to pull off the winner, but
you know, and I will say though, sorry, Drew, one last thing, and it's just think it just kind of stands to the whole idea of character and how this team is. But just it's funny how these guys give it to each other, right? Like it was Mikey Esimon who scored. He had the only goal in the game, but he was talking in regulation, I should say. But he was saying how it was funny because Nicholas Jones, who's from out of Edmonton, funny kind of a character guy. He had said he called game, and then he didn't score, and he was like he's going to need to practice more. And then Leon Gavanke was like it's just there's a lot of camaraderie. That's the way I would describe it with this team. So it was evident in that win. It was evident tonight again, and like I said, this is a team that folks are going to have to want to pay attention to because if the Jets
just keep winning.
Well, and if the Jets can't get things done, this is a team that there's no reason this team shouldn't be at least challenging for a Calder Cup final.
Before we wrap up tonight, I want to bring it to everyone's attention a quote from Minnesota Wild. Pardon me?
You're looking that way. You got to look at the camera so we can hear your mic.
Oh, I'm looking to read a quote. I'm reading Dean Evison. This is
Sit up straight, Drew.
Yeah, thank you. This is Dean Evison, Minnesota Wild head coach
from Flin Flon,
on Brendan Dillon's hit on Marcus Foligno in the first period that led to sort of some of the first round of fisticuffs. Quote, "We lost our composure, but rightfully so. If you watch the hit, he releases the puck, he takes 3 strides and then gets blindsided. He, in this case, is Foligno. The blindside hit is Brendan Dillon. Like, if you're a hockey player, you're not expecting to get hammered from the backside like that. I mean, that's the hit we don't want in the game. Blind, has no idea it's coming, extremely late. That's not a hockey hit. If Marcus Foligno isn't as big and strong as he is, that player's probably hurt real bad. We didn't like it at all. We lost our composure a little bit. Moose was rightfully so frustrated, and that's why that second altercation probably happened at the end. Moose is Marcus Foligno. So apparently they're complaining about the hit.
Hold on, someone else aside from Mark Messier has that nickname?
It shouldn't. They shouldn't. I mean, that's
what it's like. Messier kind of has that one on lockdown, doesn't he?
I'm gonna say, do they call somebody on the Wild?
Like somebody wearing like number 66 or 99. Like, yeah. But look, I'd have to look at it again, guys. but I didn't think it was that bad. Like, it was for sure a little bit late, but also if, the
Was it
Jets,
blindside
if
even,
the
really?
Wild lost their composure there, I mean, what did Marcus Foligno do when he kneed Adam Lowry at the end of that fight? Like, to me, that was much worse than the Dillon hit. I'll have to look at it again. I mean, I obviously saw it. We all saw it live, and we saw the replay, but I just didn't think it was as bad as Dean Evason is making it out to be. Even though he is born in Flin Flon, which, my dad's from Flin Flon, so I obviously am a big fan of Dean Evason, but I think, he's probably just more so frustrated with, the loss tonight.
Well, it's
Probably also
interesting
advocating for his player.
I'm sure he is, but it's interesting that you read Dean Evason's quote that I just read, and then you look back at what Marcus Foligno was saying, when he said it to Darren Bombing, and the people in the reporters post game talking about how it was just, it wasn't anything intentional. It was just sort of a part of the scrum, and so, it's sort of like, well, it's got to be one or the other. You can't be, you can't have had control of your emotion. And then it was just an incidental knee to the head of the player when your coach is saying you lost control of your emotions.
I'm pretty sure
that's playing on the edge of the whole game.
Story straight, Drew.
What's that, Dave?
That's called classic not getting your story straight.
Yeah, they probably should have coordinated their messages before meeting with the media. But anyways, I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. It certainly adds another layer to this ongoing chapter between the Jets and the Minnesota Wild, the next chapter of which will be written next Wednesday as the teams do battle again in what will undoubtedly be a heated environment in St. Paul, Minnesota. Right? It's in St. Paul. It's not in Winnipeg, is it?
Winnipeg.
Oh, it's back in Winnipeg again? Okay, there you go. So
Winnipeg, St. Paul, same thing.
Same thing. They're both cold. They're both snowy. It's fine. In any event, that wraps it up for this.
Today was rainy, Drew.
Today, you're right. Today it was rainy. It's good. We needed some of the snow to melt so that when it snows again, I have somewhere else to put all the snow that was beginning to be too high and beginning to overflow from my yard and my fence and everything.
I'm really excited to go to Sneaky Pete's after next week's game, by the way.
What, Des?
Really excited to go to Sneaky Pete's after next week's game in St. Paul.
Well, Drew, I needed the rain because I ran out of windshield wiper fluid.
Nice. That's readily available for a low cost.
I know. I tried. I stopped at the gas station. I tried to fill. I tried to, but I was like, it's too lazy. I didn't feel like waiting.
Yes, it was raining today, Ezzy. That's what you missed. It was raining today.
What's going on with this weather? Like, this is just, it's too much.
In any event,
what's going on with the show?
Well, the show is wrapping up right now because I'm going to bed. We'll be back Friday night after the after the Jets and the Dallas Stars post game right around 10:15 p.m. on Friday night. Because it's the 7:30 puck drop. So be sure to come back then to join us for the post-game show. And, of course, illegalcurve.com will be updated from now until then with all your latest Winnipeg Jets news.
Thanks, Running Man.
Audio and everything.
You think Running Man is running right now, Drew?
I would hope so. If his name's Running Man, I would assume he's always going to run. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our podcast. Go one step further. Tell a friend, tell a family member, tell a loved one that they too should be watching the Illegal Curve post-game show and the Illegal Curve hockey show Saturday morning.
If you have a loved one that's sleeping right now, wake them up and tell them to listen to the Illegal Curve post-game show.
Perhaps you want to make them a plate of pierogies, do that. Yep. Bring them the pierogies, wake them up, and then explain to them why when they're very confused as to what you're doing. That would be a good reason and a good thing to be doing in the meantime.
Drew, before we wrap up, I saw our good friend Kenny's water bottle. I wasn't going to bring up the pierogies, but once you start talking pierogies, my mouth starts to water. He said boiled or fried. I mean, it's fried all day long. To me, I'm not boiled. Get out of here.
I would agree with your assessment there, but I think we don't want to have too many hot takes at this late hour.
You boil eggs, you don't boil pierogies. Come on.
It might burn down YouTube, so we probably don't want to venture into that area. Want to say a big thank you to our sponsors: Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Bernstein's Deli, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rolly's Transfer, and Grid Park. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of the Illegal Curve post-game show, the Illegal Curve hockey show, and of course, illegalcurve.com. Brent Bellamy's asking, can you tell an enemy to watch the show? Absolutely. You can tell a friend, you can tell an enemy. The important part is
you can tell anybody you want. Anybody.
Tell them to join us on Friday night for the post-game show after the Jets and the Stars, and then Saturday morning for the Illegal Curve hockey show, and then again Saturday night for the Illegal Curve post-game show after the Jets and the Predators. A very busy weekend in store for all of us and all Jets fans around the world. For Dave Manook, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Thanks so much for joining us. Until Friday night at around 10:15 p.m., we wish you good night and good luck, and thanks for watching the Illegal Curve post-game show.